Have you ever wondered why managers, leaders, bosses don't know what they are talking about? Well, because they usually don't. Let me explain. Hey, Juan here. So today I wanted to talk about why many times actually feels like managers, leaders, bosses don't know what's going on and they don't understand what their teams are doing. Typically the root cause is that they are not part of the team. They are more like an outsider looking for an outside in. What's the reasoning behind this? There is some good reasons and some potentially not so good reasons. Let's go through them. So as a manager, you obviously have to understand how your team is working. You have to understand how a project is moving forward. Many times the problem lies in that the managers like to be reported, but they don't like to be involved in the actual work. Before we move on, I want to ask one question. Do you work with your team together with them? Or does your team just report to you the progress on your work? How can you get involved as a manager in your team's work? Well, you can actually participate in most of the sessions that your team is having, or at least in some of them. I understand that there is another parts of the work of a manager that actually are not all the time working with the team. But you can take sessions with your team that will help you understand much better what your team is doing and your team understand much better what you want to achieve. How can you do this? You can actually take part on their work. So this can be, for example, in a planning phase or in an ideation phase. You don't need to know as a manager all the details of the project, and probably that's not your responsibility anyhow. This is also why you have people in your team who are experts on what they do, and you have to pay attention to what they're saying because they have good points. In the case of this participating on a planning phase, you as a manager want to be able to actually give your opinions there of what do you think it should be, the directions that you should be going. You might not have to actually go into the details of what the planning is about. And actually, probably your team should be driving those sessions. You as a manager want to actually take a bird's eye view, that you are looking that all the things that they're talking make sense and that they are actually aligning with each other and potentially aligning with other stakeholders, both internally and externally for the project. Because these are things that sometimes are going to be missed. And this is why it's important that you actually get involved in the project and understand what's the direction that it's taking. This is going to help a lot for you as a manager to understand what your team is doing, and for your team also to understand how you work and what are your expectations at work, and how can they actually bring the answers from the very beginning to the questions that you may have. If your team is actually working in Scrum or Agile and they are working with dailies, I would encourage you to actually participate on those dailies. And don't be there just to listen and to question others, because that's not the essence of a daily. In a daily, everybody gets to participate and everybody gets to share their work. And you, as a leader and as a manager, should do the same. You should be able to tell everybody what you have been doing and what you are going to be doing. And if there's some impediments, and try to help others facilitate those impediments that they might having and getting to avoid those impediments. There's going to be times that you actually cannot share everything that you're doing. Sometimes there's going to be things that by nature you are not able to share. But in reality, most of the projects, most of the tasks that you are doing as a manager can be shared and should be shared with the rest of the team, because it's going to improve the transparency and it's going to improve a lot the trust that your team is going to have towards you, and also the trust that you are going to have in your team. And remember, it's going to be very important that you share your work with others. Help others review their work, but let others review your job. And be able to comment and take their feedback seriously. Whether you change or not your work according to the feedback is a different story. Sometimes there might be reasons why not to do it. In many cases, you should be actually taking those feedback seriously and changing the approach that you were taking initially. If you do these things, this is going to help you promoting that your team and yourself are going to trust much more each other and actually are going to collaborate much better on the ways that you're working. So as a manager, remember, your goal is not to have meetings for people to come and report to you. Nobody is ever going to get engaged by that. That doesn't actually make people feel like they belong to anything. On the other hand, if you work together with your team, if you actually help them to get their work done, or if you let them help you to get your work done, that is going to create a much stronger bond between you and your team. And more importantly, it's going to help you reaching for that vision, for those projects that you want to accomplish to make your product or your business successful. So in the end, it's a win-win situation for everybody. So how about you? How do you work with your team? If you're not a manager yourself, how do you actually interact with your manager? Is he somebody that just expecting from you reporting, or is somebody that actually involves you on their work and vice versa? You can also be proactive as a non-manager to actually promote this collaboration with your manager if they are not doing this on their own. Just remember that building trust, building transparency, building collaboration is always going to make the work experience much smoother for everybody. And it's going to be actually a much better situation to reach your projects and reach your targets as both as an individual and as a company or product. And it's going to help you moving forward. How do you work with your teams? How do you work with your managers? Let me know in the comments below. I will see you in the next video. And remember, stay safe.